I thought I saw the live notice,
Yeah,
but
it says
live.
live on Facebook.
It says live on Facebook. I think we are. So good morning, everybody. Here we are. Welcome to Brentwood Inspired Living Center. And we thought we were live. I don't think we were, but now we are. And I'm scrolling my feed on my phone to find you guys and see who is here with us and look for comments. Okay, there we are. We are live. Okay, we're on. This is always sort of a mystery, Facebook and getting on Facebook and how long it takes and are we actually on. So good morning, everybody. We're so glad that you're here joining us. My name is Amy Van Ling, and I'm the spiritual director here at Brentwood Inspired Living Center. Happy June 28th. Today is my youngest daughter's birthday, so happy birthday, Julia. She will probably be watching. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Nancy. Everybody is popping on with us. I like to see everybody jumping on here. Good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome. How is everybody? Happy Sunday, Nancy. Hi, Karen. I'm glad you're here. It's getting easier and easier every week. I see everybody jumping on so quickly. So good morning. Please leave us a comment. Leave us a thumbs up. Let us know that you can hear us and see us. Welcome to our new viewers. Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, Dawn. Yay. Welcome to everybody from our community. Welcome everybody new who just happened to stop by. Maybe you were invited. We are so glad that you're here. I'm going to give it just probably a couple of minutes to allow everyone the chance to see the notification that we're live and have a minute to pop on here with us so they don't miss anything. Good morning, Beverly. Thank you, Nancy. She says, give Julia a hug and happy birthday. I will. Yay, Beverly. I'm so glad you found us. Thank you, Karen. Okay, so I have my phone in front of me, and this is where I read all the comments from everybody. I'd like to know when you're here and joining us. Good morning, good morning. So today we are here with Dr. Fred Luskin, Forgiveness Master Extraordinaire. That's what he is. Fred is known all over the world for his forgiveness project, and I love him. And Jan just told me as we were logging on that he had been interviewed, and well, Fred told me he was interviewed by Mercury News, but that was in the East Bay Times. It was about forgiveness, and so I'm going to go check that out when we finish here. And I love you, Fred. I love your authenticity, your honesty, heart of gold. I'm excited that he's here with us today. You guys will see why in just a little while. Yay, Pat's here. Pat, are you still out of town or are you back in Brentwood? He's in Oregon, right? Somewhere. Yay, everybody is jumping on. I see all the names. Thank you for the hearts and the thumbs up. I love that. I know you're here. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so we also have our beloved John Shin with us here today, bringing his glorious tunes. We so appreciate you. John's been hosting concerts in the park. Is that on Wednesday, John? Or are you doing
Wednesdays and Fridays at 11 in Larky Park in Walnut Creek, yes.
Nice. So I know so many people have told me how wonderful it is, and I've seen it live streaming on different Facebook feeds. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. I appreciate you.
Pleasure.
And then we have our amazing Jan Knight with us. She's bringing our inspirational reading and our prosperity blessing. So hello and good morning to everybody. Bright beings of love joining us. Luinda's here. Jenny's here. Dawn says, Fred's using the same hairdresser as I am. Last call we had with Dawn, I never knew he has curly, long hair. We've never seen him with such long hair. I never knew he had curly hair. Anyway, sorry, Dawn gave that away, but it's nice hair. Luinda's here. Denise is here. Jenny's here. Yay. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Let me know that you can see us and hear us. We like to know that we are broadcasting and arriving into your screen wherever you may be watching us. We are here with Fred Luskin today. We're so grateful that he is here. It's so funny that life has all these fun synchronicities. So Fred and I discovered that, well, we knew we were both originally New Yorkers, but we discovered that he lived on the same street as my dad growing up in New York. What a small world. I love life, the fun, spectacular, exciting little things that we get thrown. So today we have Fred here, and we're so grateful. We are so grateful. Okay, everybody is popping on. Hi, Maria. Dawn says, I'm planning to get a haircut, possibly in January. Okay. Oh, you guys crack me up. Okay, so we'll have Q&A right after Fred's message. So remember to leave your comments and your questions if you have them during his talk, and I'll read them after, and we'll get to those. So we're going to go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to open with our mission statement, which we love. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, everybody. So I just invite you to feel into this moment. Take a deep breath if that feels right for you. That we embody this here at Brentwood Inspired Living Center. We are an open, heart-centered, spiritual community, honoring the one presence within us. We welcome all to connect, grow, and expand in wisdom, compassion, and love. Yay, good morning. Who else is here? Everybody's jumping on. The numbers are climbing. Good morning, Florence. Okay, wonderful. We're all here. We're all joining together. And Jan has our inspirational reading this morning. It's on our Facebook page if you want to go back and read it later. So thank you, Jan.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. It's great to be back. And good morning to Fred and John and Amy. It's a great day this morning. Sun's shining, not too hot yet. So the reading for today is from happify.com. It's another one of my favorite sites. And it's called How to Support Yourself and Others Even When You're Struggling by a woman named Linya Floyd. And the whole article is on a link on our Facebook page. So because this has been condensed, I miss Chuck. I miss my friend Chuck Turner because he was always the one to cut it down and make it sound okay at 400 words. But this is mine, so this is for you, Chuck. Linya writes, last week I found myself crying in the middle of my living room, and it was not the cinematic lone track of tears gently spilling down my face, but a straight-up ugly cry that left me drained. It would be cliche and flat-out incorrect to say that those tears came out of nowhere. And still, I was blindsided by them. Because when I picked up my phone call from my friend, I had my emotional mask on. All of us put on facades of strength at one time or another in our life. Unfortunately, we tend to forget that the same emotional mask that we've put on is the same one we're seeing in others. We forget that if we're just one phone call away from a breakdown, someone else might be as well. So this is your reminder to remember. Here's how to genuinely check in with the strong people in your life and with yourself. First, know that there are bad questions. To clarify, you're doing okay is a bad question because you already know the answer. It's fine to call and say, I don't know what to say, or I don't have the exact right words, but I didn't want to not reach out because I care about you. It's okay to say that. Put your backstory into it. You could send a more meaningful message saying that you're checking in on your brilliant, caring, funny, beautiful master chef friend because you've seen her carrying a heavy load of late and you wanted to shoulder some of it, possibly. Also, create a safe space. Open yourself up to listening without judging when you hop on the phone or a Zoom call with them. And don't be afraid of silence. Silence truly is golden. Silence can mean there's thinking going on. Don't rush to fill that space. Sit in it with them. Dig for gratitude gold. If appropriate, and if they're open to it, remind them to find the joy in all things. And know it's not too late. This is interesting for me. Checking in after you think the dust has settled often shows that it hasn't, and you're right on time. And for yourself, give yourself permission to not respond immediately. Take a moment for mindfulness. Give yourself the gift of time by carving out a few minutes for mindfulness. Dig deeper for answers. Take a breath and expand your vocabulary. It's also okay to say or to write that you're depressed, you're exhausted, you're broken, you're stressed, you're hopeful, or simply you're not okay right now. Know that money can bring happiness. Taking action by donating to a family that's been the victim of social injustice or to an organization that supports a cause you believe in, it can help lift your mood, and it can buy happiness. And her final one was find the best listener. Make time to touch base with someone with whom you can truly be vulnerable. I thought this was great list for us to consider. And like I said, the link is on our Facebook page. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Jan. That was beautiful. Thank you for finding that. Well, wonderful. We have John here. John, I'm going to hand it over.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, Jan. As I was going through what to play today, I'm realizing, how all of us are challenged dealing with everything that's going on around us. And at the risk of being redundant, it's time to call the forces in. I'm calling on angels. Come stand now by me and show me the strength I am meant to be. Come lift me up, help me to soar up through the heavens beyond earthly roar. I'm calling on angels. Come stand now by me. I'm calling on angels. Come now, help me see the power of spirit unfolding as me, shining so bright, lifting above, infinite light of your perfect love. I'm calling on angels. Come now, help me see. I'm calling on angels. Let me hear you sing and show me the comfort remove any fear. I'm calling on angels. Let me hear you sing. Call the angels. I'm calling on angels. Now come fill this space with heavenly presence and divine grace. A mist of pure love now gently fall, and perfect peace descend on us all. I'm calling on angels to come to this place.
Yay. Thank you, John. One of my favorites. Another beautiful song for us. Thank you so much. Okay, Jan, this is our time to harmonize prosperity, bringing our focus into that vibration of abundance. So thank you, Jan.
Okay, everyone, this is our time to join together and to celebrate our abundance and to know that we are truly prosperous in every way. So now let's take a deep breath and release it. And let's open our hearts to this marvelous practice of giving. And even though we're not gathering right here in person, we remember that our community continues to thrive because of our awesome generosity, our awesome contributions. So we know that we're continuing to be blessed by staying connected every day, and that we've got our favorite small groups on Zoom still going on, and our connection group right after the service, and ways to stay connected all week long. We believe in the law of circulation, and we abide by this belief in the law of circulation, knowing that what we give, we shall receive. So what gives comes back to us. And even though we aren't physically present, we still have to pay our rent, we're still paying our electricity, our PG&E bills, and we're still keeping our center secure, and we're getting ready for our return at some point, perhaps in July, and we're still doing all of that to keep our center alive. So let's come together to continue to contribute to our abundance as a center. And let's give thanks for that ever increasing flow that's happening, an absolute good in our lives and in the lives of our center and in the lives of the world as we see it. So there are different ways that you can give and contribute. We have three ways: Zelle, PayPal, and writing a check and putting it in the mail. So if you're confused about all that, just go to our website, BrentwoodInspiredLiving.com, and it's all there for you. And please consider making a personal donation also to our nonprofit contribution, where our tithes go for the next 3 months, and that's the Contra Costa Solano Counties Food Bank. So you can find out more about that if you go to our website, to the giving page, and the link will be there for contributions to the food bank. Our contributions from the center are going there, and we'd love to have even more contributions from individuals. So let's declare right now that we accept our good and our greater good always. And so it is. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Jan. Yeah, we are excited to be bulking up the food bank.
Right.
Definitely necessary. So thank you, everybody, for your contributions.
And I didn't know if you wanted me to share about the Nature's Vision, or they can just go on the website.
Let's just say we're excited about a fundraiser we're right in the midst of right now, and all the information about that fundraiser is on our website on the fundraiser page, and it's Nature's Vision, and there's some really awesome things to check out there. So swing by there. Okay, John has our last song for us this morning. John.
Very good, and on the theme of caring this month, caring about everything that's going on in this world around us. This is a rewrite of a song that was written 54 years ago by a man by the name of Bob Dylan, who cared a lot about things. So let's go into a little Dylan style here. Come gather round, people, come out from your homes and protest that this disease around you is grown, and confess that this world has been ill to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then it's time to rise up or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Writers and newsmen, don't terrorize with your pen and tell a new tale of the phoenix of man, and don't judge too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling how we'll be gaining, for what seems to lose now could turn out a win. For the times they are a-changing. Come President, Congressman, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he who is last will be he who is stalled. There's a storm wind outside and it's raging, and it's shaking our windows and rattling our walls. For the times they are a-changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and open your eyes, a new world is at hand. These forces of change are beyond your command. The old way is dying, it's aging. Time to build us a new way, so come on, lend a hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line is drawn, the way it is cast. It's time to slow down, we've been going too fast. The way we had lived, it's a way of the past. The old order's rapidly fading. Time to build us a new way, the day has come at last. For the times they are a-changing. For the times they are a-changing.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you. We appreciate you so very much. Wow. Thank you both. Thank you both, Jan and John, for being with us this morning. I always enjoy spending time with you. we all logged on a little early this morning, so we were talking for probably half an hour, catching up. I appreciate
Always a privilege. Thank you.
both. Yeah, love you both. I'll see you on the other side. Jan, you're still muted, so I didn't hear you, but I love you.
Nice to see you, John.
Always, Fred.
Yeah, I know, always.
And here I am with Fred Luskin. It is my pleasure, my heart, friend, colleague, dynamic man. I am so grateful for you. I'm delighted to share Fred's bio with you this morning, and it is really, really short, and I can tell you that it could be pages long. But we'll go. Dr. Fred Luskin is a director of Stanford Forgiveness Projects and teaches Stanford classes and workshops on managing stress and living lives of greater satisfaction. He's the author of the best-selling book, Forgive for Good. And there is so much more to this amazing man. And I'm so excited to share him with you today. I'm going to pray us in and then hand the screen over to Fred. So if you just join me in just being present and getting centered in this moment, we give thanks and appreciation today that we are here and that we are alive. Oh, we invite in the spirit of holiness. We have great awareness of the oneness of life. In this moment, we feel that we're unified in the presence of peace, love, wellness, caring, forgiveness. We invite in blessings and we're receptive. We say yes. This day is magnificent. It is a magnificent day, and we declare that we are available here now to serve love. And we cover Fred with our love, and we open our hearts and our minds to his message today. And so it is. Amen. Namaste. It is with a grateful heart and a big smile that I welcome Fred Luskin. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Hello, everybody. It was interesting to me, too, as Amy said, we had a conversation one day, and it turned out that her father was born and lived for a little bit about a block away from where I was born and lived for a bit in the Bronx in New York. And, you know, it's like a really nice, I don't even know what it is, connection or synchronicity or something. You know, for me, these Zoom things are a mixed blessing. I miss seeing people. Talking into a screen is not the same as talking to human beings. And, you know, just me personally, that was a big part of, that is a part of the appeal of what I do it's just being able to look at human beings and, you know, see us all on this planet, like traveling through space, trying to figure out like how to live this life as well as we can. The topic that I often speak on is forgiveness. And Amy sent me a little thing that said that like this month's topic is caring, I think. You know, but at its heart, I mean, at some level, they're all the same. Like forgiveness, compassion, kindness, tolerance, generosity, caring. They're all expressions of I'm going to say, a human heart, like not encumbered by fear and selfishness. And that's unfortunately more rare than we would hope on planet Earth. That, I mean, if you look around at what human beings have created, it's some mix of generosity and caring and kindness with a huge dose of fear and selfishness everywhere. You know, it's, I mean, I was listening to what Jan was saying before, and like you can't help but be struck by all of our brokenness. And I don't know if that's built into the design whether we're designed to be broken and therefore we can develop some humility and empathy, which is one of my hypotheses, or that we all behave badly and therefore that breaks us. Like I don't know the reality. But I do know that those of us who can be honest, not just with our brokenness, but with our malevolence or our selfishness or our greed or our ugliness, those who can be honest with our own tend to be a little more kind to other people. And many of us who pretend that ugliness and negativity is outside of us only and is exists somewhere else, which is an incredibly common human trait, is to make believe that the world's problems reside in the other and not somewhat in our side or in our perspective. But those who can see, and I'm not saying we have to be abjectly harsh in ourselves, but I've seen the benefit of a kind of humility that often comes later in life when you recognize that in many ways you didn't do your best. And in many ways you were highly distracted by things that didn't matter very much. And that in many ways you behaved, or I behaved, with great selfishness, masquerading as all sorts of other things. And so I was partly pretending and made us to have certain values when my behavior suggested otherwise. There was I don't know if it was an experiment done in the 80s, but I think it was a thought experiment, but it was this simple acknowledgement that no matter what you say, your values are exhibited by what you do. And that if somehow there was a camera that could follow you, and I don't mean those silly reality show cameras where, they showed people doing ridiculous things, but if you could just do like a timestamp of your life and an analysis of the words that come out of your mouth, you'd see very quickly what you valued, what was important to you by how you behaved and the thoughts that you had and the words that you used. And we all miss the mark. I mean, all of us. And, I look at a world with so much projected hostility, just so much. Other people are bad. Other people are evil. Other people have the wrong inside of them. And either I don't, or my group is better or superior, or just all sorts of things. And I mean, it lends me to recognize that, like, that's what human beings have been doing forever. I remember the first really wise psychology professor that I had. This is back in the 80s, and he was quoting Sigmund Freud, who I at that point thought was a very misled, kind of ridiculously out of fashion, whatever. But Sigmund Freud had said, now 120 years ago, that the most basic of human defenses are denial and projection. So when we're uncomfortable with something inside of ourselves, or some part of ourselves, or some reality or feeling or experience or whatever, we tend to deny that it's in us, and we send it someplace else. Kind of like the whole the whole basis of the Course in Miracles, that, we see who we are. But the denial and projection is much, much simpler than that. It's whatever it is I don't like or I don't want or what I see, instead of owning our piece of it and working on it and like with some humility, recognizing that we too are flawed and we too contribute to global dysfunction, we send it somewhere. And I over the decades that I've been teaching forgiveness, I've been traveling to different places where I have seen these things in action. So we did research projects in Northern Ireland with Catholics and Protestants who had ages old grievances. And I would sit with both of them sides or talk to people from both sides, and both sides were very much into denial and projection. We're not the bad guys, they are. We're only reacting to the issues. They start them. And I remember even more, I'm going to say chillingly, was when I would travel around the United States, again, probably more in the 90s. And I would go to some really liberal places, and their take, if I got involved with forgiveness issues with people in anything around politics, on one side were people who, let's just say their views on abortion were that abortion is murder. And I'd go to another part of the thing where abortion is choice and has to be defended. But I saw on both sides the same qualities of denial and projection, that the other side's evil and wrong, and we're right. And we don't have any issues inside of us. The issues are all outside, that what we think is right and the way we do it is right. And the other side, the projected side, is bringing all sorts of bad stuff to the game. And I remember, I didn't have any, I can tell you a huge number of situations where I had no iron in the fire. Like I had nothing with Catholics and Protestants, and the abortion issue was not that huge for me, but I just watched as people demonize the other side. And you see it, you've seen it in the United States now, with red states and blue states and certain politics and other politics. And I've traveled and spoken in all sorts of places. And I've been told by people, let's say the Bay Area, which is extraordinarily blue state. And I've spoken to people who have left the Bay Area, and they've said, oh, thank God, there's some diversity once I left the Bay Area. Like people don't have to think exactly the same way, that there's room for opposing points of view. And there's some truth in that. I know this research shows that about 20% of Republicans have left the Bay Area over the last X number of years because they don't feel welcomed. And I've spoken to other people who have left the Bay Area and have said how much they miss the diversity of the Bay Area and how much they crave our open-mindedness. So it comes to me, like back to me all the time, that like there's something in each of us that, not that we have to, but if we want to contribute to a certain kind of healing, it's part of the process. It's not a have to, because we don't have to do that much. But it's part of the process of understanding that at a certain primitive level of evolution, it's too frightening to see our own contribution to, say, world hostility. It's too hard. And it's too hard to see our group or tribe or who we identify with. It's too hard to see our contribution to all the discord in the world. So at a certain level, we just are us versus them for safety. And human beings define us in all sorts of ways. And those definitions are changing and evolving. And there's a startling research study on this. I mean, one that there's a couple of research studies that you have to feel a little embarrassed about being human. But one of them is they did experiments, I think either before or after soccer matches in Europe. And they would take, like, they found like the places where people would get together and party and congregate around their team, and maybe after if their team had won. And so what they did as an experiment was they wanted to see how team identification affected compassion. It's a great study. So they would have like a group of people who were, partying or celebrating, a big group for their particular team. And they were most people wearing the colors of that team, and they aligned with the uniform. And the experiment was they sent joggers to jog around the areas, and the joggers would fall and be injured. Not really, but they faked being injured. And it turned out that the uniform that the jogger wore influenced how much help they got. So if you were running past a Real Madrid celebration, but you had on another team's uniform and you fell, that had a marked impact on how many fans would help you. That if you were wearing the same team, I think it was like 70% got help or some number like that. And if you were wearing the other team's colors, it was less than half. And this was like startling. But you see it everywhere we go. It's us versus them. And we're right. And it's very hard to imagine like any conception of what I have of spirit that satisfies spirit. That and it's it doesn't mean this is an easy fix. I don't believe this is easy to fix at all, and I don't believe that I don't believe it can be done without a lot of conscious attention and work, and some good degree of humility. That the problems in the world are not just out there. I contribute. And when I'm harsh, either about myself or others, in an us versus them way, I'm contributing to the suffering on the whole. And that's a hard recognition. It's very hard because we all need our groups for support and help. And we all need certain kinds of identifications to anchor ourselves. And as human beings, we are very vulnerable and very fearful because we are in a world of tremendous like, team and group identification, which is also who I'm against. And so this is no easy thing to quiet down the parts in us that are harsh. You know, with some of the, and this is just the piece I'll end on, with so much of the interest in social justice now that's coming out. I was interviewed last week by Time magazine on just a little piece of this, on the issue of self-forgiveness. And it jarred me to, or spurred me to think a little about this in terms of this idea that what do I contribute? And where do I demonize people, or where do I deny equal access in my being to people who are different than I am? And the thing that I came up with, and the conversation I had with the woman, was how there's a limitation to social justice if forgiveness isn't a part of it. And in particular, forgiveness for ourselves. That at some level, this is all wired in, you know, our tendency to judge and exclude. Part of it is this is the nervous system and brain that we all took. But another part of it is a recognition of how hard real self-forgiveness is. That these spiritual qualities are deep and require effort and attention and work. So self-forgiveness is not like this kumbaya, yeah, I didn't really mean it, I'm okay, everything's fine. That's not self-forgiveness, that's bullshit. Self-forgiveness is, one, awareness of how I actually am. You know, what prejudices do I have? Who do I mistreat? In what ways do I hold back from caring? Those are hard questions. Those are deep awareness questions. It starts with awareness, then it goes to responsibility. You know, I see myself and look what I've contributed to. You know, look what I've participated in. And these are not shallow denial, suppression, easy glossing over of deep things. I mean, this can be a lifetime of work to do this kind of stuff. And the third part of real self-forgiveness is some amend making, some deep apology, some trying to make something better for the harm we've done. It can be symbolic, it could be money, it could be time, it could just be open-heartedness, but it starts with a kind of awareness, it moves to responsibility, and then it goes to, I owe something. But if it's not finished with, I forgive it, then it just hangs out there with all the other bitterness and grievances and resentments that pollute our world. But there has to be, to this whole domain, at the end of it all is, you know, I forgive myself. I'm human. I am part of this like vulnerable species. And if I go through the process of acknowledging to some degree what I've done to the best of my awareness, and I'm willing to do something to make amends, I don't have to stay there as a bad human being. Like that, it's the bringing of forgiveness in that allows us to heal. And then we demonstrate something that will really heal this world. the forgiveness piece. It will, in particular, not just to ourselves, but that's just the little piece that I wanted to touch, is that we need to forgive this. We're all only going to be here for a modest period of time anyway, and new flawed humans are going to take our place when we leave. So we might as well practice some forgiveness also before we go, for our flawed contribution to this world. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth as a forgiveness teacher. But you could do compassion instead of forgiveness, would have pretty much the same impact. Anyway, thank you. I hope I didn't take too long.
Absolutely not. You didn't take too long. It's wonderful. We could keep listening. We could go on and on. Okay, everybody, I've got my phone, so if you have any questions or comments, questions for Fred, this is the time. Drop them in. I really liked the way you said, all of this caring, forgiveness, they're all expressions of the human heart, and that is true. Caring, room for opposing points of view, taking an honest look at how have I contributed? How am I part of the us versus them? I think that's huge. Thank you for reminding us of that. And I really like the way that you ended with self-forgiveness, because that is truly caring, a piece of caring that oftentimes just sort of gets shoved down. And then that's part of the projection then that we experience collectively. Okay, everybody, where are your questions? Let me scroll in here and check in. So Paris asks, how do you forgive something that happened before you were born?
It's hard for me to think that that's that important. But how do you forgive the human condition? That's hard for all of us. If you look at what human beings have done to each other, it's chilling. During the 20th century, they talk about 100 million people were murdered in different wars and cleansing and stuff. I think the key issue is to acknowledge that harm is done, but also be vigilant that your responses to the harm are not contributory to new harm. That I think would be the most important part of the answer. That human beings have an incredible capacity to harm each other, and in some ways we want to step outside of that for moments when we can. That would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much. Garrett says, thank you, Fred. Very thought-provoking as usual. What about our regrets for not doing more for others or not speaking up?
Forgiveness of self is for both acts of commission and acts of omission. And don't minimize that. And a truthful accounting of our lives includes a lot of omission that most of us did not do enough to help. And so we're all, if we could all hold that question deeply, we'd have a better planet. If we could all ask ourselves, how could I have been better? What did I miss? What more could I have done? That humility would make us better people and create a better planet. So don't run from that question. There's a famous, and this is way beyond my pay grade, but Gandhi is supposed to have asked himself, how would I make my next act so that it was helpful for the most vulnerable person on earth. So we're way beyond that. I mean, we're way behind that. But we can ask ourselves at least the question of, is my next act going to harm somebody? And it can be through speech. And even if we feel righteous in our speech, it'll be good to have that little annoying voice in our head saying, is that really necessary? Because we're going to harm somebody.
For sure. Wow. Great. Thank you. Maria asks, how can we get rid of wanting revenge if we try to forgive, but we cannot forget?
You can't get rid of wanting revenge. It's wired into your nervous system. It's an essential part of being a human being, because every blue moon you need to take revenge. Every blue moon. So you can't get rid of it. What we can do is manage it. And what we can do is we can see revenge once it has passed its like important date. Like sometimes you have to do an eye for an eye, sometimes, but it's rare. Once that time is passed, that's when the revenge ideas need to dissolve. But the easiest way to limit one's desire for revenge is to pay accurate attention to how much kindness and goodness has been sent your way, so that you'd be less likely to feel like an embattered victim of something. That's the strongest antidote to revenge.
Thank you, Fred. Beverly says, wow, great insight about denial and projection. How do you forgive an ex-best friend when they still owe you a lot of money? Thank you so much.
That's great. An ex-best friend who owes a lot of money. How do you do that? There are some things in this life that you just can't make right. And that is a very, very tough lesson for us humans. One of the ways you can hold that a little better is to broaden your compassion scope, so you see how common that is. When you focus just on your little situation you can't make right, it feels terrible. When you recognize there might be 5 billion people on the planet who have that experience, it can become a little easier.
Great response. Thank you, Fred. So Paris was following up with the question about something before she was born. She said, my question isn't a personal one, but it also goes to the legacy work that Black people seem to be struggling with right now. And yes, historic harm, not just through wars, but definitely through violence. And what can happen at a focal point with one single person, think lynching. My colleague at work who is Black recounted that her family at every gathering pays homage to an ancestor who was lynched.
I'm not sure I get that question.
I think I don't necessarily think there was a question. I think she was just kind of following up on her initial question about something before she was born.
Okay.
So thank you, Paris. So Ron asked, how does the courage to grieve what is relate to the centrality of deep forgiveness? So he's wanting to know about the central point of deep forgiveness and courage to grieve, how they relate. Thank you, Fred.
They're implicitly related. There really is no forgiveness without grieving. That there's no free lunch in that way. That when you take this birth and you take this body and you take these connections of ours, loss is inherent. And so we sign on to grieve. We can resolve that grief with with some sadness and loss and poignancy and bittersweetness, well, we can resolve that grief with bitterness. But you're going to suffer. And the question is how long, how much, and do you create an enemy during your suffering, or are you somewhat willing to hold that suffering as part of the human experience? But the grief is going to be there, and the people who don't grieve probably are more dangerous than the ones that do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes, everybody. Is that it for questions? I have lots of comments. That was amazing. Thanks, Fred. Thank you, Fred. Very meaningful message. Thank you. Jenny says thank you. Lucinda says very valuable talk for me. Thank you so much, Fred.
Sweet.
Lots of gratitude. Lots of gratitude. Okay, Dave, I think there's a question here. You've spoken in the most general sense of differing groups sharing projection and denial, which is given. Can you speak to a large portion of humans that are unable to even consider this concept applying to them versus different groups that hear this info and more likely agree that they have the bias when called on it and do not deny it? Some of this latter group that does not intentionally agree are probably open to considering their part.
Well, I'll give two answers to that. One is we don't do anything without bias. So bias is built into the human perceptual system. We're all biased all the time. It's what makes us human. And our nervous systems are built to bias. It's what do you do with it? The second thing is, the first question you asked is unfortunately, in my belief, an evolutionary question. Like, how do people grow and open and move along from their most primitive fear-based responses? And I have to assume that that's a very slow evolutionary process that we're all taking part in.
Thank you, Fred. Jean asked, earlier you were speaking about what can be termed as tribalism. How much, in your opinion, of this is genetically programmed and how much is learned?
I have no idea. I mean, there's genetics individually, there's species genetics, there's culture, there's family of origin. There's so much that goes into it. I don't know.
Thank you, Fred. Jan says, wow, yes, no forgiveness without grieving. And the question is how long and how much? Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, that's another unanswerable question. If you've had a lot of losses, sometimes grieving is deeper and harder. I think the question for when forgiveness might be appropriate is when the grieving starts to become perseverative and there's nothing further learned or gained, that it's just repetitive. And but even that may have some purpose. The studies they've done on like normal grieving, like the loss of a spouse or things like that, and they refer to the normal course of grieving for something like that as 6 months to 2 years. That most people within that time period, without therapeutic intervention, shift their attention from looking backward to again looking forward. And this is where I'm going to stop. Is I think the biggest question of forgiveness is, where is your attention? Is it in the past, replaying grievances, or is it in the present and future as to who and what you want to be and what you want to contribute? That would be the at least the defining question around forgiveness.
Well, I think that's a wonderful spot to stop. So thank you everybody for your questions and all the love that you're sharing with us. Remember to jump on the Zoom call at 11:30 for that connection time, and Ron has candle lighting, so grab a candle. Our weekly groups are still meeting. If you need prayer, let us know. Our prayer team is all over that with affirmative prayer, so we love to receive those prayers. Lots of thanks here and gratitude for you, Fred. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you for zooming in with us this morning. I'm going to close us with our prayer of transformation. So if you just feel into this, the light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God directs us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is and always shall be, and we are all divine. Thank you for joining us this morning, everybody. I love and appreciate you. I will see you next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate you. Lots of love and hugs.
I'll speak to you soon, Amy.
Very soon.